This is question 5, which is an evaluation. We have this experiment here, and we've got magnesium ribbon in a boiling tube, and we've added hydrochloric acid, and we're counting the number of bubbles produced. Then they are swapping the metals for aluminium, calcium granules, copper, iron and zinc. The learner has got these results here, how many bubbles, and they have decided from these results this is the order of reactivity. What job do we need to do? Well, we've got 8 marks and we need to evaluate, which means we need to say what we think of this experiment, what they've got right, what they've got wrong, that sort of thing. And it says your answer should make reference to the method, results and conclusion. So it doesn't want anything else really. The method, the results and the conclusion is all that's needed. So what problems can we find with this method? Well, we've got magnesium ribbon, but what about the aluminium? We don't know what that is. Is it foil? It says calcium granules, so that is in little bits of calcium. Copper, we don't know. Iron, don't know, but there might be filings, who knows. Zinc, don't know. So our first point is that the metals might be different sizes or surface areas, which might affect the experiment. So this is really talking about controlled variables. So you should always think about your controlled variables. So for example, metals might be different sizes, lengths or surface areas. Certainly calcium granules have a higher surface area or surface area. So we've talked about the metals. Always think about volumes and concentrations and sizes and temperatures and things like that when you think about controlled variables. And indeed with our acid here, well, how much acid are we adding? And do we add the same for each one? It doesn't say. So for the acid, we've not stated the volume or the concentration. So that's a problem. So we're actually doing this experiment now and we're counting the bubbles. Well, are we counting the bubbles, the total number of bubbles, or bubbles in 1 minute, or bubbles per minute? Who knows? So that's something that we need to think about. So that would be that's our dependent variable, or a controlled variable for controlled time taken to count the bubbles. So the time taken to count the bubbles. So like count them for 1 minute. This experiment will also be affected by temperature, so it will presumably occur faster in a higher temperature. We don't know that, but it might do. So to make it a fair test, we'd have to keep the temperature the same each time. So we will comment that the temperature wasn't controlled. You would suggest a thermostatic water bath, something like that. Also in the mark scheme, there's something about we're not indicating how the bubbles are to be counted. I'm not quite sure what they're getting at. I know. I think that's per minute or total number of bubbles. So I'll write something, but I'm not quite sure what they are. I think they're getting at this dependent variable. So dependent variable not stated exactly how the bubbles are to be counted. For example, is it total or bubbles per minute? That sort of thing. And you're thinking about the results. Well, they've done this experiment once. I mean, it would obviously be much better if they did repeats and calculated a mean and so on. So only collecting one set of results. There are no repeats. So, for example, can't calculate a mean or identify any anomalous results. So that's the dependent variable. We could possibly suggest a better way of estimating how much gas is produced using some method of collecting these bubbles rather than counting them. The best way of doing that is using a gas syringe, or you could, even an upturned measuring cylinder filled with water that displaces. That might be another one, but a gas syringe is the best way. So would be more accurate if measured volume of H2 gas produced using a gas syringe. And the last little bit, which was actually ignored by a lot of students who were at the time marked, was we need to evaluate their conclusion. We need to evaluate, this is their conclusion. The student thinks that is the order of reactivity. Do their results support that? Well, which had the most number of bubbles? Well, number one was calcium, and then it was magnesium, then it was 46, that is zinc, then it was 19 iron, then it was 6, that was aluminium, and then the last one in last place, copper. So do their results support their conclusion? Yes, they do. They've put them in the right order compared with their results. So we need to say that conclusion, yes, the results support their conclusion. So we've hopefully on our way to 8 marks now. We've understood what the experiment's about, and we've talked about the method, especially these controlled variables. We talked about collecting the results, largely to do with the dependent variable, and we have evaluated the conclusion. So that's what you need to get for 8 marks.